Hey there, and welcome to the Gap Year podcast. My name is Michelle Dittmer, and I am your host and Gap Year expert. Today, I have the wonderful Janet MacDonald with me from MyCampusGPS. Janet is the expert on everything scholarship. And so we get a lot of questions about gap years and scholarships. And so Janet is here today to clear all of that up for us. So Janet, do you want to just give a little hello and give us a little bit of background on who you are and what My Campus GPS is all about?
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Michelle, for inviting me here today. So I'm Janet MacDonald. I'm a former university admissions officer. So I was in admissions at Dalhousie University in Halifax and at UBC in Vancouver. And I was the coordinator for a scholarship program at Dalhousie University as well. So that's kind of my background. And basically how I came up with my business, My Campus GPS, is, through those years, many years of working with students and parents, I discovered that many of them were missing out on scholarship opportunities simply because they didn't know much about scholarships. So they didn't know how to find them. They didn't know how to apply for them. And what was even worse is that they didn't know that they qualified for scholarships when they actually did. So, it used to be in the past that scholarships were only for top students. But that has changed, and it has changed to the point where there has never been a better time in history for scholarships. And by that, I mean different kinds of scholarships for different kinds of students. So of course, there are still scholarships for top students, but it doesn't end there. There are all kinds of different kinds of scholarships for different kinds of students now. So there's really kind of this great opportunity out there. And like I say, I noticed that a lot of students didn't know that, and therefore they were missing out on these opportunities. So, I knew something about scholarships. They needed to know something about scholarships. So you put those two things together. And that's how I came up with My Campus GPS. And basically what I do is I help high school students and to find and apply for scholarships. That's pretty simple.
That's awesome. And I think such a needed thing. I really like that you highlighted that people don't know that there is money out there available to them. And whether that's for particular things you've been involved in, your ethnic background, your place of residence, your interests, your abilities, your skills, your talents, there's really something out there for everyone. And let's not let that money go unclaimed. Like, put your name in the hat, get out there and get those applications in, because post-secondary is not cheap. So anything that you can get to support you on that journey means that you're going to have a little bit more financial independence and the ability to make other things happen in your life, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, and I think that in addition to the money is great. Okay, so we're not going to skip over the fact that the money is great. But the other thing that I think it's important that students understand is that scholarships are not just about money. I mean, of course, like I say, money is great. And that's probably the first reason why students, engage in the process. But there are other benefits to scholarships that not a lot of students know or understand. So for example, having a scholarship on your record can give some weight to whatever it is that you are applying for, whether that is a job or whether that is maybe eventually down the road applying for, some kind of professional program, medicine, law, or something like that. It's a mark of success. It's a credential on your record, and that can help you then to reach your next goal. So I'd like students to kind of think a little bit more broadly about the benefits of scholarships other than just the money, because those other benefits might be more valuable to you down the line than the money. And as far as having that mark or that credential on your record, it doesn't even matter if the scholarship is $50, put it on. You don't have to oftentimes you don't have to put the amount, but it's a mark of success on your record. Put it down, be proud of it, and let it kind of do some work for you.
I love that perspective, because a lot of recent graduates coming out of university or college, their resumes are almost indistinguishable from one another, because you're just young in your career. You might not have a ton of experience or work experience, and to be able to have those other weighted value things on your resume, it's what's going to set you apart against that other person who has their BA as well. If you're neck and neck, those scholarships can tip you over the edge. And recruiters or people in jobs, they're not very good at gambling. They want something that's a sure bet. And if you have listed that somebody else has vetted you and said, yes, this person is worthy of something, that goes a long way. I've hired a lot of first year or recent graduates in past jobs, and anything that sets you apart, anything where somebody else is going to vouch for you, that holds a lot of weight, especially early on in your career.
Absolutely. And that's why I say scholarships beget scholarships. In that respect of, kind of like almost like a laddering effect. Once you win one, it helps you to win more. Or like you say, it could be the difference if it's between you and another candidate who is equally, as good as you or whatever. That could be the thing that makes the difference. And so, like I say, the value can be bigger in the long term than you even realize.
Yeah. And I think that ties nicely back to the gap year too, in terms of differentiating yourself and doing something different. And even for a lot of our gappers, having more time and capacity to research scholarships and then to put together really quality applications. So I'm curious if you have any advice or suggestions on how somebody on a gap year can really leverage this time when it comes to the scholarship process.
Absolutely. So, I would think, part of what I do is try to make things easier, faster, and better for people, right, in this process. But, one of the things that I would suggest a person on their gap year do is try to become a bit of a scholarship expert, because it's not just going to benefit you that one particular year. Scholarships could be part of your future, for your entire post-secondary career, which could go on for several years. So there will be opportunities for scholarships all throughout your post-secondary career. So, it's not just a one-time thing. So, become a bit of an expert on scholarships and how to find them. So become familiar with the search engines, how they work, set up your profile, get good at finding them. And then, I think once you start to find some, you'll start to understand that there are some common things. You'll understand first that they're all different. And that's why it takes a bit of time, to do this stuff. They're all different because they're offered by different funders, and it is the funder who determines everything about the scholarship. So how much is for, who it's for, if there's an essay, what the essay is about. The organization that's offering the money, they determine everything. So they're all different because all of those funders are different. But there are some common things that occur with many of them. So you will start to catch on that I'm seeing this type of theme over and over again. So some of those themes that you'll see are basically especially in the essays, they're going to be asking a lot of self-reflection questions. Mm-hmm. And so it would be helpful for you to start to develop your self-reflection skills, I guess you would say. Why did I do these things? What did I learn from these experiences? This is what you see time and again in these scholarship applications, especially in the essays. So that would be something that I would suggest that, students can start to develop that. You might even start to develop some content around some of those themes that you see that are common, so that at least you have some kind of starting point. So when you actually do get down to writing those applications, you have some content that's already created, you understand the process. So it'd be just a great opportunity to become a bit of an expert that will carry you through for these opportunities that you'll have for years to come.
I love it. Now, when you say creating content, a lot of our gappers are big into becoming content creators on YouTube, on Instagram, and things like that. And there's also the written word. So when you say content, what do you mean when you're talking about that?
Well, I mostly mean written content,
Mm-hmm.
but some of the scholarships are now have students who are able to submit video submissions and things like that. So there are different formats now. I would still suggest, though, getting comfortable with the written format, because that's probably still where the majority are going to be. But you could, a very common type of theme or question on an application is, tell us about your most meaningful volunteer experience. Why was it important to you? What did you learn from this experience? Very common. Okay. So that is something that alone, answering that question, the content that you develop through answering that question could probably I'm not talking about just cutting and pasting and putting into every single application. Obviously you tailor it to each individual application, make sure that it fits, and it's, you might have to tweak, but you don't have to start from scratch. So, you have some content, you kind of get the idea of things, and you have that, and you're kind of ready to go. And my thing is also about strategy, like, what's your strategy? So the strategy here is to apply for as many scholarships as possible, in the least amount of time possible. Let's do this the most efficient way. And by reusing that content, there is nothing wrong with doing that. It's what I suggest you do if you can. It's the smart way to do it. It is the smart way that students do it, so that you can apply for more scholarships in less time.
Awesome. I think that's key. And I have two kind of follow-up questions for you on that. The first was around the content that they're producing. So you use the example of your most meaningful volunteer experience. So we just launched the Gap Year Scholarship. So we're giving out Gap Year scholarships, and the way we're evaluating them on questions similar to that is not on the activity that they did. So it's not about the fact that you started a puppy mill rescue organization and you save puppies from burning buildings, and it's amazing, compelling, that activity, but it's actually more for us about the reflection and the connecting and the self-awareness that you were talking about. What did that volunteer experience mean for you? So the experience could for us have been, I spent an afternoon picking up garbage. But the reflection part, it made me realize X, Y, and Z about the world. It made me realize ABC about myself. And this is how it's going to shape my future decisions. And the fact that you spent an afternoon picking up garbage isn't rated less than saving puppies from burning buildings. It's mm-hmm. the reflection. And is that true for other scholarships as well?
Oh, absolutely. That's absolutely true. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily matter so much about what has been done versus, like you say, that demonstrating self-knowledge, that shows maturity to be able to show that type of self-reflection. And then, like you say, making that connection kind of to the larger lessons, the kind of life lessons that came from that. And then how are you going to use that in the future? How has that changed you? How is that going to, shape your future and how you do that? And it's important though, that if that experience happened a while ago, you need to say then how it did change you. You can't just say, oh, well, it changed me, but then you don't prove that it changed you. Like, you don't say how. So, you want to definitely, it's always about demonstrating, right? Mm-hmm. It's about demonstrating how that changed you. And if it just happened, then discuss how it's going to inform your future. But if it happened in the past, tell them how it informed your future.
I love that. And I think it's important for a couple of reasons, because I think some people feel that their experiences aren't as valuable or as grandiose as other people, and therefore they think they shouldn't apply. And I just want to encourage you that even if you have what you consider smaller experiences or things that seem a little more basic than your peers, that doesn't mean you will not be successful in scholarship applications. There is so much more to it. And I like to use the nerdy experiential learning framework. The what happened, what did you do, the so what did that mean, and then the now what are you going to do with that information? So those basic three questions, what, so what, now what, is a nice simple way to get yourself thinking that way. And you can practice that on a daily basis. When you experience something, go through in your head while you're lying in bed thinking about your day, and go through the what, so what, now what, and get practiced in making those connections, because that will make your application so much stronger in the future.
Mm-hmm. And I really like the so what, because often, students think, well, I have to list all of these things like a grocery list. I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that. But that doesn't tell us why you did those things. It doesn't tell us what you learned from doing those things. So that's the so what. And then the now what is very important too, because one of the main things that the scholarship funders are going to be looking for is the initiative. How did you take initiative? How did you say there was a need there, I filled it, or there was something and I did something about it? So there's a lot of weight put on the whole initiative part of things.
I love it. And that kind of transitions into my next question for you. What about using your gap year to strengthen your experiences for those scholarship applications, either for your first year or for the subsequent years, like you said? So what are some things that young people could do on their gap year that would bolster their ability to earn these scholarships in the long run?
Yeah, so I think it's important to go back to what you said. It's not necessarily about what you do, it's about the skills that you developed and what you learned from the experience. So I'd like to kind of get away maybe from giving you specific examples of things. I mean, we can talk about that if you want, but and that's what I do with students is we brainstorm to come up with some specific things that they can do to optimize their activities, I guess you would say. But I like to just start with the whole thing about first of all, I will say that leadership is kind of your best buck. It's the most bang for your buck activity. Okay. And that's what I bring, is that strategy to use your time in the most effective and the best way possible. So even though you're on a gap year, you don't have all the time in the world, you still need to use your time to your best advantage. And so with that in mind, a leadership role is going to be your best bang for the buck activity. So what that means, though, is I'd like students to start to think about leadership in a much broader way than they might do now. So leadership is not necessarily just tied to a role, like a title or a position. There are opportunities for leadership everywhere. It's basically anytime you take responsibility for something and what you're doing serves or helps others in some way. Okay, so that's a really broad definition. And once you start to think about it that way, you can see lots of different opportunities for it. So, in that, with that type of leadership role, think about how can I do something that is going to give me, that responsibility for something where I'm helping other people, in something obviously that I want to do, that I enjoy doing. Okay, that's key. And sometimes, students don't think enough about that. You want to do something that you're really, interested in. So I kind of think about the 3 I's of leadership: something that you're interested in, you take initiative in that area, and then you try to make an impact in that area. So, what you can start to do really is start to think about, like, take a more thoughtful and kind of deliberate approach to your leadership. There are thousands of books on leadership, or just do some Google searches and start to think about, what kind of leader do I want to be? How do I want people to see me? But some of the skills that you want to think about developing through whatever activity, it might be things like recruiting people, motivating people, bringing people together with a common kind of interest or purpose, and reaching a consensus on how to move forward with that, and kind of identifying the best skills in other people to help them to help you, to assign them tasks, keeping them on task, evaluating the impact of whatever it is that you did. These are the types of skills that you want to think about developing, and that can be developed through a lot of different things and in a lot of different ways. But then that will help you, like I say, by taking a more kind of thoughtful and deliberate approach to your leadership, and really kind of zoning in on, how can I find something where I can develop those skills. When you do that, and when you participate in whatever activity it is, you are going to have some fantastic content then to use on your scholarship applications. And because we're talking about scholarships, that's what I'm focused on here. But what we're really talking about is just incredible personal growth and development. That's really what they're looking for in scholarship applications. So you need to go out there and you need to do these things that will help you to develop those things. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a huge save the world type of thing. It can be something quite small and grassroots, in your own community. It's more important about what the skills are that you're developing, and that the personal qualities and the character that you are developing through that experience.
Yeah, you're talking my language here. I love leadership. I did my master's in leadership, actually, and we had tons of discussion around, what does leadership look like? And I think it's important that all of these gappers understand that leadership doesn't mean being the boss. It doesn't mean being in charge. It doesn't mean necessarily starting something of your own. There are ways that you show up as a leader every single day. And similar to the first example, when we were talking about the scope and the size and the perceived value of that experience, it's the same with your leadership. You don't have to be the big head honcho running something major. Those silent leaders, or those leaders on the side that are continually showing up and stepping in and making other people's lives easier or better or more efficient, that has a lot of weight too. And I want you to think about that and think about how you are a leader, because a lot of people are scared to attach that title or that role to them, when I think if you sat down with somebody like Janet, she'd be able to pull out 10 examples from things you've been involved in that show leadership qualities. So don't be intimidated by that term, because we all have those leadership qualities. And for the scholarships, and jobs and everything, it's about, how do you communicate your leadership capabilities?
Absolutely. And it's by thinking about leadership much more broadly, and that kind of, taking responsibility for something, and using what you're doing to help other people, it means you don't have to wait for an opportunity to come to you, and you don't have to wait to be elected into a role or something, into a position. You can start to see opportunities all the time. in front of you, ways that you can, and start out small if you want to start, like just start out small if you don't have much experience. The other thing is you want to be very aware that doing this is going to cause your self-doubt to come into your mind a lot at different points, right? It's not just even in the beginning, it can happen at different points. And I always tell students that, you will have self-doubt through this process because you're doing something different. You're trying something new. There's a risk of failure, absolutely, but that's where the personal growth happens. It's not in doing the same things over and over again. So of course you're going to have self-doubt. Everybody does. It's normal. It's natural. Just, acknowledge that it's there because it's there and it's normal and it's natural, but don't let it hold you back from doing that thing that is going to give you that great personal growth. So acknowledge it. Yep, it's there. It's normal. It's a natural part of this process, and just continue on and do what it is that you want to do.
Yeah. And own your greatness, own the skills that you have. This is not a time to be humble and to hide or to downplay the things that you are capable of. This is a time to share that with the world. And that's a powerful thing. And it can feel very overwhelming to say those words, maybe for the first time, like I am a leader. And to see that on paper, it can scare us a little bit, saying, oh, who am I to say that I'm a leader? But when you back it up with the anecdotal stories or comments from other people that have showcased that you are a leader, or you do take initiative. There's nothing wrong with putting those things down on paper. It's a very great experience, and it can help us to understand just how fantastic we actually are, because sometimes we don't take time to actually put that down on paper and say, no, these are the things that I'm good at. These are the things that other people have told me I'm good at. These are the things that I excel at. These are things that I enjoy. And seeing that all in one place can sometimes feel like bragging or feel uncomfortable. And this is the place to talk about those things and to show other people just how fantastic you are. And that can take us into an uncomfortable place sometimes.
Yeah, and I know I work with a lot of students who struggle with that. They'll say, "Isn't that bragging? Like, do I really say that?" And I get that it might seem that way because we're told by everybody, especially by you're probably by your peers, that they'll tell you the moment you're starting to feel like bragging. But this is not that. This is something that's completely different. You are just stating facts. You're not embellishing, you're not making stuff up. You're just telling what you did. And you're, like you say, you're backing it up with evidence, basically. And remember, they want to know this. You're just telling them what they want to know. So when you kind of look at it from that perspective, it's easier to get past that natural kind of feeling, maybe that, hey, isn't this bragging? No, it's not bragging. It's just stating facts, and it's telling them what it is that they want to know.
Amazing. Well, I could talk to you for hours, but I have one very specific gap year question for you before we wrap up. So some scholarships do stipulate on them that you need to be moving directly from grade 12 into post-secondary. How common is this, and what, if anything, can you do about that if it's written into the fine print, but you do know you need to take, or you want to take, a gap year?
So I think I do think that it is quite common, although I think it's becoming less common. I think funders are starting to understand that there are different pathways for different students. So that's good, that's positive. But there are going to be some of those, absolutely. I think what you can do is, if you wanted to take the initiative, you could contact the funder and ask them. So each funder, like I said before, each funder determines everything about the scholarship. So that includes the rules and regulations and policies and all of that sort of stuff. So you could contact the funder and explain, this is my situation, blah, 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 and ask them if they will accept an application from
Mhm.
you. And it might be something that they have never really considered before. So, but it will be up to the funder to determine that. And they definitely can. I've seen it happen before where they have allowed students who didn't, you would have to fit the criteria exactly, other than that one
Mhm.
thing for
Mhm.
the gap year. So if you fit the qualifications exactly, but it's just the gap year, then contact the funder, let them know, and give them the opportunity to tell you whether or not you would then qualify. It may be written into their terms of reference or something that they can't. I mean, who knows? But I have seen them change some of that, some of their kind of written rules, I guess you would say, to allow other students to apply. So it's definitely worth following up.
Yeah, I think that's important for people to know. Don't just throw in the towel. Don't give up on it, because that email or that message can be really beneficial to you in the long run. And put everything in there. Say, this is why I will be an even better recipient after my gap year. This is how I'm building on the things I talked about in my application on my gap year. This is how I'm going to take on more leadership, and I will be a much more deserving person at the end. So how can we make this happen still?
Yeah.
Because the funders want to see successful recipients. That's what their goal is they want to give you a leg up, and they want to be able to tell amazing stories about their recipients. And so if you can show them how you are going to be an even better gap or alum of that scholarship, then you might be able to sway them a little bit.
Exactly. So, unfortunately, the onus will be on you to educate them, but that's a good experience. That's a good, skill for you to have as well. I mean, it's something that you will be doing for other things as well. So educate them a little bit about the benefits and what you will then gain by having this gap year.
Awesome. And like I said, we could go on for hours. But if people did want to learn more from you, where can they find you, and where could they maybe work with you if they were interested in taking you up and making their life a little bit easier, quicker, more efficient to get those scholarships? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm at mycampusgps.ca. And my email is just janet@mycampusgps.ca. So if I can be of any help to anyone, that's what I love to do.
Amazing. Well, thank you for spending time with us today. And it's so valuable to hear all of these things. And we'll link to all of your stuff in the show notes. So if you want to learn more from Janet, just click on those links and we'll get you connected with her. So thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today.
Thanks, Michelle. It's been fun speaking with you.